Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Fit RX. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Dennis. Got another show today. I think you'll really enjoy. Um, I was telling him with me doing this show, I'm all the time reading about health and wellness books and longevity books and whatever. And a lot of times, because of the history that I read, they just kind of pop up on my Kindle. You may like this, and sometimes I'll start reading them and I'm like, yeah, that's trash. And other times I find good stuff, like what I did with this guy. So I found this book called The $1,000,000 Body Method, the entrepreneur diet for superhuman focus and rapid weight loss. And anyway, the name kind of intrigued me. So I got to reading this book and I thought it's really good stuff. I was like, man, this guy nailed it. And so I thought it'd be fun to just get him on the show and have a conversation. So Nate Palmer is my guest. He's a personal trainer. He's an author of the book that I just mentioned. He authored another book as well. He also hosts his own podcast. He does a lot of online training, education, all that stuff. I'll let him say more. But Nate, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for the high praise on the book. Because I felt like could have taken that a lot of different directions. Like I read a lot of books, a lot of them are trash. This is one of them. So I appreciate
no, absolutely not. So, well, tell us, I guess, if you will, a little bit more about you, just how you got into training and then maybe your motivation, to start writing books, specifically this book. Like, where'd you come up with that title and just kind of the motivation behind this book?
Absolutely. So I was born at a really young age, if we were going to take it back that far. And so I got into training back in like high school. And it wasn't because I was super strong and good looking. It was because there was a specific moment I really remember that I was talking to this girl and, I had a little bit of crush on her, right? Whatever. And she comes over and she's like, hey, let me see your arms. And I'm like, you talking about these bad boys right here? And she turns to her friend. She goes, see, I told you his arms were smaller than yours. And I was like, oh, this is exactly the worst thing a 14-year-old boy can hear. So a lot of trauma there. So I was like, I just got to work out until I'm strong and everyone likes me. And I think that a lot of people have had that experience of, running from insecurity or using the gym as a method for coping with that sort of thing. So worked out really poorly in high school, then worked out really poorly in college and gradually started getting a little bit better, but decided kind of like, I'm going to figure this out. I graduated high school. I was 155 pounds and 6'4". So I was a real slender human being. So I was like, I'm going to get into the gym. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to do whatever it takes. So I tried everything. I did keto. I did paleo. I did intermittent fasting. I did CrossFit. I did Orange Theory. I did all the bodybuilding programs. And nothing really seemed to work out well for me. And it was always just like this grind and you're eating 6 meals per day. And then I was never really feeling like this is fun and easy. I'm having a great time with my fitness. It was always it was painful. And then a couple of years passed by and I got hit up by this magazine to write an article for them. And at the time I was like, okay, do you want an article on building muscle or on burning fat? Because those are the only two things that there are. And they're like, no, neither one. Could you write something for us about how to have all day energy using your diet? And I was like, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. You eat 6 meals per day and you're sad all the time. What are you talking about? And so I did a little bit of research. I reached out to some people who I really respected in the industry. And I came up with this framework, which was basically like, hey, remove most of the carbs from your day, take out that oatmeal, take out the sandwiches, the burger and French fries, and put all your carbohydrates in the PM. Because what's going to happen is that you're going to have better blood sugar and lower insulin levels. And then in the evening, when you have more carbohydrates, you're going to get more tired from digesting those and you're going to facilitate better sleep. And so I put this together and the article did really well. And I was like, well, what if I tried this? So I kind of went back to the drawing board with my own nutrition, went from eating 6 meals a day, just the chicken and the broccoli and, and the rice, to eating more in this style. And I was working as a personal trainer at the time. So I was like, I'm working 6 a.m. till 7 p.m., 8 p.m. sometimes. So long days. And I was always tired. And all of a sudden I started to feel a lot better. I'd go into my PM classes or group fitness, what I was doing, have a lot more energy, get home, felt really good. And also my body started to change in a way that I was really pumped about. So I started to feel like I was getting leaner. I was maintaining my strength. I had energy. I was like, this is what I've been looking for. So I tested it out on a couple of my clients, and they all started getting pretty good results as well. And everyone seemed like, hey, this is working for me. And it also doesn't feel hard because we weren't even tracking our calories or doing anything like that. So a couple of years back, I was talking to a client or like a buddy of mine, and he was here in Phoenix. He was starting a roofing business, and he's like, hey, I got 30 pounds to lose. I am not going to go to the gym. I am going to be in my truck driving for 12 hours a day. I'm going to eat fast food 5 times per week, but I don't want to be drinking 4 energy drinks a day. So what can I do for that? So I was like, oh, great. I got the thing for you. I got the juice. So I set him up on this protocol, and we were kind of checking in. And then after about 2 months, I was like, how's it going? Are you ready to start working out now? We'll do a little weight loss. And he goes, hey, I'm doing great. I'm down to 2 energy drinks a day. My wife's noticed a big difference. When I get home, I don't have to sit on the couch and watch ESPN for 30 minutes before I can talk to my kids. And I'm like, cool, ready to well, what's your next goal? How much weight do you want to lose? He goes, well, that's the cool thing is in the last 2 months, I've lost 22 pounds. And I was like, okay, well, we might be onto something here, because if it's easy to do, you can do it while you're driving. You don't need to actually work out with it. And it's just like a simple framework that you can apply to eating out, going to Thanksgiving dinner, eating at home, whatever it is. Like, this is too good to pass up. So at that point, I was like, all right, I want to write this out and in exactly what needs to happen. And I hope this came across in the book, but I feel like a lot of coaches write books that are like, hey, all these cool things happen, and then you can find out more if you just buy my program. But I didn't want that to be the case. I wanted to be like, here's all the things I know about this and how you can utilize it in your own life. Here's a 28-day program, so people can start creating their own experiments, basically, on what's working for them, or how do they feel when they try a low carb backloading approach like this. So that is the super long version of the question you just asked.
Okay. No. So I guess that's what you put in this book. So it was working, and you just decided to kind of make this more public so more people could find it, and out came the book, the $1 Million Body Method. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, perfect. Well, let's get into that a little bit more then. So you talk about basically the $1 Million Body Program. And so you have kind of 7 daily investments. And so daily investment 1 is a high return on investment morning routine. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, I always think about things in terms of investments. A lot of my clients are entrepreneurs, investors, real estate people. So I like framing stuff in a way that makes sense for them, because I do think that when you have your energy and you feel really good and your health is on point, like most people, I'm sure you'd agree, their passion is not macronutrients and the hip angle on a Bulgarian split squat, right? Their passion is like their job or their families or the things they're doing outside of it, their hobbies. And I think fitness is a great facilitator for those things, but it's not the end all be all like it has been in my life. So I try to be like, hey, if you can invest your time in these simple activities, they will pay off for you financially, energetically, emotionally, all these things. So the high ROI morning routine, I think it's based on the simplest things that you can do, because I'm really sick of 22-year-old life coaches with no jobs and no families being like, you just need to eat just like a Peruvian bee honey nectar smoothie. It's $800 worth of rare ingredients. And then you need to meditate for 90 minutes. And then you got to go align your chakras before you can move on. And by noon, you should be ready to take on the day. I'm like, my day starts, my kid kicks me in the face and it's like, let's go, Dad. You said the park yesterday, let's roll. So how do you simplify down all these morning routine things from the miracle morning and everyone has their own morning routine, but into something that's very efficient and works well. And so for me, what that looks like is having 32 ounces of water first thing in the morning. And it's super simple because you get a win. You drink the water, you get a win. You think I'm a health-minded person. That's great. Number 2, you rehydrate after being dehydrated all night. I say that word a lot and I always struggle with it. So if you have any tips, I can say dehydrated better. And then I tell people to do 60 seconds of explosive exercise. So you could do shadow boxing, you could do jumping jacks, you could do squat jumps if you're burpees if you're a sadist, whatever else. But just getting some movement going and drinking a little bit of water, you get that done in under 3 minutes. You feel really good, and it jump starts your energy faster than like going and pouring a big cup of coffee. So
So
like that go ahead.
I'm sorry. What are you going to say to people that are like, oh man, I can't do anything until I have 2 cups of coffee and then I can think about moving and, do something like that. What would you say to that?
I'd probably look at them like this and be like, you can do anything you set your mind to. And then I do my arm like that. No, but I really tell people, hey, hold off on the caffeine for at least an hour after you wake up, because when you wake up, your body is waking you up naturally. It wants you to be awake. Your body loves you. It wants to take care of you. So what happens like internally is this hormone called cortisol, which some people think about as belly fat hormone, the stress hormone. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just a hormone. It's just natural. So what happens? You wake up, this cortisol spikes up and it peaks at about an hour. So you're going to get a lot more out of that caffeine you're taking in if you wait about an hour to have it and then use that to kind of use it from the jumping off point that you get from the cortisol. If you just wake up and you just pound a cup of coffee, those are going up at the same time. You're just going to have a lower peak of your caffeine. And as a caffeine aficionado, I feel like this is my duty to tell people this. I also think that like, okay, that's my morning routine. 32 ounces of water, 60 seconds of explosive movement. It's not perfect for everybody. It's not going to be the right fit. I think it's great and it's under 3 minutes. So why not do it or try it at least? But I think a great morning routine needs to have 2 pieces. Number one, you need to eliminate decision fatigue. So this kind of goes into the breakfast as well. But if you spend all your time being like, what should I have? Should I have the oatmeal or should I have the Captain Crunch or should I have a bagel? I heard that oatmeal is hard, but I should have the almonds. Do you have almonds in it? And you start thinking all about all the foods you're eating and then what shirt am I going to wear? And then at what time am I going to wake up? And should I snooze my alarm? And all of a sudden you've spent your first hour of your day making all these ticky-tack little decisions. So one of the, like, you figure out how this looks in your life, but eliminate the decision fatigue in the first hour of your day. Have it mapped out. Know what clothes you're going to wear. I have 11 shirts that are all black that look exactly like this. It's just what I just put this on. It's no big deal. My pants change sometimes. And then I always know what I'm going to eat for breakfast. It's the same shake I've been eating for 11 years. It's pretty good. It's fine. Like trying to eliminate some of these things that cause us to slow down and make poor decisions when we're making decisions later in the day that are actually important. So eliminate decision fatigue, number one. And then number two, you need to cast a vote for the person you're becoming. So if you're like, man, I cannot wait. I want to lose this weight. I want to get this off. Finally, I'm ready to do it. You need to every single morning do something that shows to yourself, this is who I'm becoming. That's why I love the water, because you drink water, you're like healthy person. You eat some supplements, healthy supplements. Great. You make a shake, you're like healthy shake. So now you had 3 wins, 3 tallies in the I'm a healthy person column of your day. Like that's super cool. And I think that a lot of times people are like, I want to lose 30 pounds. I have 1 win and it's losing 30 pounds. And that's going to happen in 6 months or whatever. They don't see those little tiny wins that you can stack up and just keep this snowball rolling. And I think that starts with the morning routine.
Okay. Well, very good. So the next daily investments are basically breakfast, lunch, dinner. We'll combine all those. That's 2, 3, and 4. You talked about, your approach to diet a little bit. Go into more detail on that, I guess, if you will. On breakfast, sounds like you like a shake in the morning. Maybe talk about what you put in that shake, what you recommend for lunch, and then dinner.
Yeah. So the shake is super simple. I basically do water and ice, 2 scoops of a protein. So I'm trying to get about 40 to 50 grams of protein in that shake, 2 tablespoons of almond butter or peanut butter I've been using recently. And then I throw a little bit of salt on top of that. That's the shake I have.
Is that a whey protein that you use?
Yeah. Whey protein isolate is what I use. If I have a whey protein hydrolysate or I want to spend more money on protein, I'll get that, but never the vegan stuff. Okay. I'm big into anti plant-based protein products.
Okay.
So that's it. But also, like all that is really is when you think about it from a macronutrient standpoint, it's just protein powder is protein. And then the peanut butter is fats. So you're having a high protein, high fat breakfast. Another option for that would be like eggs and bacon or eggs and avocado. You don't like that? Another one that I really like that is weird that people are like, really? Is chicken thighs and almonds. I'll try to eat that when I'm going skiing or something like that. I just have such great energy all day eating that in the morning.
Okay.
Then for lunch, I'm just going to do kind of like a big ass salad, something like that. So some like high protein, high vegetables. And then sometimes I'll throw like a piece of fruit in there if I want to. I don't stress about like fats in there as well. I don't try to get them, but lots of protein, lots of vegetables. And I think that eating light is one of the best things you can do for yourself at lunch, because how many of us are going to Chipotle, getting a burrito, and then eating that burrito and then spending the next 3 hours doing 45 minutes worth of work, just cramming that into because all you want to do is crawl under your desk and have a nap, right? So I think that, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, well, if you were done with lunch, I was going to ask what your dinner looks like. And then also wanted to ask, like maybe for you personally, when you work out, or what do you advise people when they work out? Like for myself, I work out in the morning. I'm doing very similar things that maybe that's why it connected with me. Cause I was like, oh, well, that's what I do. That's what I do. But I do a protein shake, but I work out first in the morning, and then I'll do my protein shake. Sometimes I'll add a few more carbs into my shake just because I drink it immediately after a workout. But does your recommendations change based on when someone is working out?
This is a great question. And for a while, I really struggled with this because I think carbs after a workout is one of the best places you can have them. It's great for carb backloading. But what I kind of just drew a line in the sand on this, and I said, stays the same until you hit a specific waist to height ratio. And based on some research that I had done, this waist to height ratio signified a shift from insulin resistance to insulin sensitivity. And obviously it's a scale, but this is kind of like when your body's like, hey, we're doing pretty good. So you're gonna have lower visceral fat, higher insulin sensitivity. So you're gonna be able to digest and utilize your carbs a lot better. And so once you get to this waist height ratio, then yeah, we ramp up the carbs at post workout and at lunch and at dinner. And I think that's a good way to kind of move into that. But that specific number is 0.46. So if you measure your waist at your narrowest point, so above your hips, like 1 inch above your belly button or so, and then you divide that by your height. And then if that number is 0.46 or below, then you're going to be able to, you'll know fairly certainly that your body is just better at using carbs. And at that point, I think that's when I make that shift.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Perfect. Yeah. That's great advice. Yep.
I'm also curious to what you think about some of these things that I'm saying. Like, is this?
Yeah, no, I like I said, I think you're right on. Definitely, like, when I'm advising patients, I mean, it depends on their goals, and you're right. I mean, one thing I check a lot, and people have heard me talk about this, is fasting insulin levels. And I live in the Midwest. Oklahoma's, I don't know, I think we're not last in the nation, but we're pretty dang close. We're like number 48 in obesity. And so I see a lot of people who are overweight, and they have chronically high insulin levels. Insulin is a storage hormone. It just really promotes, keeping that weight on. And so for those people, yeah, I mean, I advocate very low carb, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it doesn't really matter if they're exercise or not, low carb. And then, I'm pretty lean, so yes, I can utilize those carbs a lot easier. And so I wouldn't hesitate to tell somebody that after a workout, or, something like that. So no, I think you're right on.
So here's how I've kind of described insulin resistance to people, and I'd love to get your feedback on if this is a way oversimplification on, like, now I'm like just completely bastardizing the whole thing, or if this makes any sense. But basically what I tell people is, when you are insulin resistant, you eat, let's say, some oatmeal in the morning. So your blood sugar shoots up, right? It breaks down into sugars, into glycogen, and your blood sugar shoots up, and your insulin responds, but you get too much insulin. So now when that blood sugar drops down, the insulin has taken the blood sugar and put it into the appropriate cells. Now you still have insulin left in your system. And that sends a signal to your leptin levels, or just basically your hunger, to say, hey, we need to get some more food in us to get to even stuff out. So you get that signal. You're like, I'm hungry at 10:30. And instead of having a handful of blueberries, you have half of a donut. And then all of a sudden that blood sugar shoots back up. Your insulin's out of proportion. And then you're all day riding this roller coaster where you're never even, and you're never in homeostasis. Yep. How close to...
No, that's good. And it's a vicious cycle. And so over time, that insulin level is just going to keep going up. It's going to remain up chronically, to where now the insulin that you're making, you have a lot of insulin in your body, but it's not working well. And so your body's just producing more and more insulin because it's not having the effect that it needs to. So it keeps churning out more. And so now you have this really, really high insulin, which, not only is going to promote weight gain or keeping the weight, but it's also just not good for you from a healthcare perspective. And there's Ben Beckman. I've had him on my show. He's a PhD researcher out of BYU, and he wrote a great book. And he talks about the dangers of elevated insulin levels, and how we kind of miss the mark when we treat diabetes and stuff, because we just focus on the blood sugar and we don't do anything about dropping the insulin levels, because these chronically high insulin levels increase risk for Alzheimer's disease. They contribute to arthritis. all kinds of
It's
chronic
inflammatory to
disease.
have that much in your
Absolutely.
system.
Absolutely. So, but yeah, but what you said is correct. So
Fascinating stuff.
but
Yeah, and I
anyway,
think
so
we missed the mark on like cholesterol as well. You know, we're looking at those instead of
no
the
doubt. Yeah,
the
no, I've
blood sugars.
harped on that a lot. So yeah, no doubt. So so what's a dinner? You call it the CEO dinner. So what's the CEO dinner?
Well, I think of it as the CEO dinner because you're gonna have like that's the biggest, the best meal of the day. You're going out with clients, you know, you go to grandma's house, you go out to dinner or whatever else, and you can find something that fits into this framework because the framework is simple. It's have a carb, have a protein, have some vegetables for dinner. And that's great because, you know, if you go to Thanksgiving dinner, you're having some mashed potatoes, some turkey, some vegetables, and probably some extra everything. You know, but if you're at home, you could make ostensibly grilled shrimp, Captain Crunch, and some Brussels sprouts. And I'd be like, Greg, what's wrong with you, man? Is everything okay at home? But but like if it's the framework, right? And I think that's honestly more important than being on a diet is just having some color by numbers that you can take with you wherever you're going. So that's the thing that I really love because if you go out to a steakhouse, you're having steak and baked potato and some green beans. If you're going out somewhere like a Mexican restaurant, you're having fajitas vegetables, you're having the tortillas and you're having the vegetables there. So you can really apply it to a ton of different scenarios and situations without falling off or, like I hate the terms clean versus dirty, but like eating off plan or having like feeling like you missed the mark, you ate dirty, and now you have to beat yourself up and go through the process of like shame, where you're like, or even worse, where you're like, oh, I blew it, screw it, I'm just gonna eat whatever now.
Yeah. So this kind of higher carbs, maybe at the last meal of the day, do you recommend that for everyone or for people who really have a lot of weight to lose? Do you try to get them to be more kind of strict keto for a little while until they get more of that goal weight and then maybe add the carbs of an evening? I know when you add carbs of an evening, it's going to increase serotonin. As you mentioned, it's going to help you sleep. So at what point do you usually recommend that?
If someone can tolerate going low carb or keto, I'll let them go. I'll let them do that. That's not generally what I promote because most of the people I'm talking to already struggle with that black and white. Like I can't eat this. This is off limits. And therefore it's all I want and I fixate on. So I think having carbohydrates in there is great because I'm like, hey, you want to eat that? Like, great, you can have it at dinner. So generally, especially to start, I'll say, hey, just have the one serving of carbs for dinner and then go back for as much meat and as much vegetables as you want. Like max out on that if you are still hungry after eating. And then once people get a little bit closer to their goal weight or they're like, hey, I want to shift more into building some muscle or maintaining, that's when I try to add more of those carbohydrates, a couple of extra servings in the evening. But I really feel like a low carb diet is anything under 100 grams of carbs. So that's pretty hard to do in one meal anyways.
Yeah. Do you find any of these people eating that way if they're not metabolically flexible? I've used that term some. That would work well for somebody who has that kind of metabolic flexibility. But if they're not used to that, are they going to struggle during the day not having those carbs? So let's just say they go strict keto, their body is going to adapt. They're going to be running on ketones. They should have more energy. But if they're never maybe getting into ketosis because they're eating more higher carbs at night, but yet they're restricting carbs during the day, and they're not yet metabolically flexible, are they going to feel crappy during the day? Do you see where I'm coming from with that?
Yeah. And I've seen that a little bit. The people who seem to struggle are the people who eat pretty low carb at night still and then work out in the morning. So they kind of go through all of that, like that muscle glycogen early on in the day. And then they hit 11 o'clock. They're like, I'm not feeling so good. And what I've seen at that point is we either add a piece of fruit in at lunch or we bump up their electrolytes and use like sodium almost as a carb replacement. And that seems to work really well for a lot of people. There are still people who are like, that's not my jam. It's not working. I need something. We'll add some simple sugars, like some fruits in there, something easy, or, add a banana into their shake. No problems. But I feel like I always like to try the electrolytes first to see if you can use those and feel really good, have high energy, because I think that most of us are, we're not out digging holes or running triathlons during the day. So most of the time, if you're eating like a baked potato or, some rice at dinner, you're going to have enough muscle glycogen and liver glycogen to get you through till the next meal without like suffering some of those things. And it's the rare person who doesn't.
Gotcha. Okay. So next you talk about final deposits. explain what you mean by that.
So again, I didn't want to put something in here about sleep, like go to sleep at like put your phone away at 9:30 or wear blue blocker glasses or something like that. But I still wanted something to facilitate deeper sleep and helping people get into a better place to fall asleep faster. And so one thing that I've always heard from especially entrepreneurs is that they lay down and all of a sudden they just have thoughts going through their brain. I didn't email this person back. I got to get on this thing. I got to do those things. Like, what color suspenders am I wearing tomorrow? And all of a sudden, like you're just having these crazy thoughts and you're just going down this rabbit hole. So I think that taking the time before you fall asleep to write down. So like I do this before I close my computer at the end of the day. I grab my sheet of paper and I write down what 3 things, if I accomplish them tomorrow, would result in me feeling very good about my day. So it takes me a minute to distill down what's my schedule, what's important, what do I need to have done, write those things out. And then it's just this breath of air where I'm like, oh, like now the path is clear. So if I can give people the ability to give themselves a clear path by just taking the time to be very clear on what needs to happen, then you have less of those things just running amok in your brain. So that's what I call the final deposit.
Okay. Very good. Next is liquid assets. What do you mean by that?
This is super simple. Just drink a gallon of water per day. I'm a big fan of oversimplified science facts. So I feel like, obviously if you're in Arizona and you're working out and you're working outside, you probably need more than a gallon of water in the summer. If you're in Wisconsin and you're not moving all day, you probably need a little bit less. But for the most part, I think people should try to get a gallon of water every single day, because most people are going to be astonished by how little water they drink. Some people are like, I don't think I've had water in the last 3 days. I had a Diet Coke yesterday and some other coffee, like it's amazing how much water we're not drinking. So especially when you take that 32 ounces you had in the morning, now you only got to get another 96. That's about 3 of these bad boys. So that's what I recommend. Obviously it varies from person to person, but when I'm talking to people and I'm like, yeah, so just take your body weight in ounces and then divide it by 2 and then multiply it by the derivative of your age minus your dog's age. Then people people just like completely glaze over because it's just overly complicated. People are like, well, how many grams of protein do I need per day? Well, people are like, well, it's 0.88 grams per pound of body weight. No, it's 1. It's just 1. Just have 1. Like, how can we make this more palatable and easier for people to remember?
Yeah.
I always try to think like, could I tell this to an 8-year-old and have that 8-year-old go explain it to someone else? Because I think that's a very important quality to have when delivering information to the general populace that they'll actually take action on.
Yeah, for sure. And then lastly, you talk about work hard, train harder. Do you have a particular regimen you like for people to follow as far as working out? What do you usually advise people? I'm really on a kick, especially this year, about just building or at least maintaining muscle. I talk about how muscle is the most metabolically active tissue. So obviously the more you have, then the more you can get away with eating some carbs or whatever, like we discussed. But what's your advice to people?
I mean, that's exactly it. Like, I think that muscle building is the best goal there is. So people are like, oh, I just want to get leaner. I'm like, that's good. When are you going to build some muscle? They're like, I just want to do some cardio, or I want to try triathlon. It's like, cool. But when's the muscle going to happen? Because like you said, like it helps with everything. It's metabolically active. It helps you eat more carbohydrates, which is great. Every pound of muscle you have, you can absorb another 11 grams of carbs. Fantastic. That's a lot of tacos, a lot of pancakes. You look good in a t-shirt, the confidence is there. And I think that's really understated. Like, it's just how do you show up in the world? How good do you feel? And then it's going to help prevent or even reverse aging, like you're like when you are not necessarily having to store fat as much, and also your bones, your joints, your ligaments, your tendons are all being kept safer because you have a higher degree of muscle mass. There's just no loss there. So I'm always pushing people into training to build muscle mass. Yeah. However, when people first start the program with me, I kind of give them 3 options. 1 is like, hey, let's just start walking. Just get outside and start walking. 2 is let's walk for a week or 2 and then start building up to what I call 30-15-3 on a treadmill. 30 minutes, 15 incline, 3 speed. I think it's like my favorite cardio. Again, super simple, easy to remember. You can do it anywhere. And I think that walking ends up in the more of the recovery category rather than like the cost category that you can find in like boot camps, Orange Theories. So I love that. And then the third one is let's build you up to doing a training program, either now or in a month. So, because I don't think you need to work out or lift weights to lose weight, but I think it is the best goal to eventually get to. So when you drop a few pounds, you decrease your inflammation, you're feeling better, you're moving better, you've stacked these wins all day long, then it's like, yeah, why would I not go work out? And I think that's a cool place to come from, rather than, what we know about habits is like, if you try to change all like 10 habits all at once, it's overwhelming. It's a lot of work. So I'd much rather just like dial in those little pieces one at a time. And that's why in my programs, I used to do month-to-month programs. I don't do that anymore. I do 6 months or a year, because we're going to be at it for a while, and you're just going to struggle, and we're going to hit a plateau, or we're going to fix it. So like, give yourself a nice long runway, take your frame of mind out of this like 6-week detox, 8-week belly fat, whatever, and start thinking long-term, because that's one of the biggest problems is that people never think about what's going to happen after they reach their goal. And I think that's the most important piece, the maintenance piece. But it also doesn't sell magazines. So
yeah, that's great stuff. I love it. And then you also finish up with recommending fasting for 24 hours once a week.
yeah.
And people have heard me talk a lot about fasting on the show, intermittent fasting. There's all different ways to do it, but talk about why you kind of threw that in there.
So, well, I wanted to write a nice round number, right? So if we have 7 daily investments times seven days of the week, that's 49. We got to have one more to round it out, right? It's not like necessarily the only reason, but a lot of people like that intermittent fasting, the 16-hour fast with the 8-hour feeding window. I've always found that promoted a kind of disordered style of eating in the middle of the day when you're really hungry and you're like, I'm just going to eat some food, and then you're tired in the afternoon. Again, I want to promote highest energy. So I think the best way to do that is by doing a 24-hour fast. I've also heard that the autophagy effects that you get from a 24-hour fast is 3.5 times what you get from a 16-hour fast alone. So it's just a little bit better. And then I'll also have people trying to like, okay, start with a 24, let's try a 36, let's try a 48. And I think that can be really powerful, because number one, 48 hours without eating, that's like 37% of the week or whatever. Math is hard. I don't know. Then also, they're the mental fortitude and the self-belief that you get from completing a 24 or 48-hour fast is really cool. Like, even transcending the physical benefits or the weight loss or any of these other things that people will tell you about fasting, saying, I'm not going to eat until tomorrow night, and then doing it is one of the most self-confidence, self-belief boosting activities that you can do, because it's tough. And we're inundated in our culture with ads for food, and you go home and you pass the refrigerator 16 times. Like, my kids want to eat. I don't know why they eat 40 times a day. They're just never not eating. They're always have food with them. So we just are surrounded by it in our culture. So for you to be like, no, I'm abstaining from that. It's black and white. It's binary. It's off right now, and I'll be on tomorrow night, is really cool, really powerful. And I think it really further cements your capabilities as a human. So you're like, I can not eat for 24 hours. I can definitely get to the gym in the morning. Yep. I can definitely wake up a few minutes earlier. I can definitely drink my water. I think that is really important, because at the end of the day, Greg, I can give out all these great tips and eat like this, and here's a good recipe and stuff like that. But if people's identity does not shift, no amount of motivation and no amount of discipline will ever get them to keep the results forever, because we will never act outside of our identity for a long period of time. So if we always consider ourselves to be unhealthy, non-athletic, I always give in to food, I can't resist these sorts of things. If that's our belief about ourselves, then we have no chance. But if we can shift that belief to, I can do anything I want to, I am a healthy person, I make hard choices because I know the benefits that are going to come from me, then we can start changing actually how we show up and giving ourselves long-term results.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, I used to fast every Sunday. I just fast all day Sunday. I don't do it anymore just because I'm kind of in a bulking stage right now, trying to put on I had lost a little bit of muscle. I'm trying to put it back on, so I'm just eating right now, trying to gain weight. But yeah,
I always found fasting on the weekends was harder for me. I thought I could do it better during the week when I was busier. What do you think?
That's probably true. I don't know. never worked out on Sundays. It was always kind of my rest day. That's why I picked Sunday. But you're absolutely right. For a lot of people, if they stay busy during the week, if it's a work day, it is easier for them. I did my first 5-day fast at the beginning of the year in
Wow.
January. I did it with a group of guys. I actually made it into a podcast episode, and we checked in with each other every evening. It was kind of fun, and it was a great experience. So
What were you taking in during that time? Just water, coffee, green
water
tea?
and black coffee. Yep, that was it.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so I tell people all the time, I don't know that fasting, especially these extended fast, if you would view it as a weight loss thing, but even though you will lose weight when you do it, but you're going to gain most of that back. But I think it's more of the other health benefits you get from it, not only the mental fortitude as you suggested, and the autophagy and all that. So it's just a great healthy habit. So I love that you just threw that in, kind of at the end there. So
Yeah.
but
I've always heard that anything beyond a 3-day fast is now you're getting into kind of that you're not muscle sparing anymore. You're going to be a little bit catabolic.
I'm sure that's the case. Yeah. And obviously you wouldn't want to do, something like that frequently. My plan is, I had a great experience doing it. My plan is I'm going to do it at the start of every year. So I'm going to do probably a 5-day fast once a year. But so I always tell people that the longer you're going to fast, the less frequently you want to do it. But I think fasting all day, like you suggested, 1 day a week, I mean, that's great.
I'd love to see some like if you did like some biometric markers pre and post, and then maybe next time if you added in some like essential amino acids or something that was non-calorie,
Mm-hmm.
as especially on a 5-day, that'd be super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so my wife did it with us, and she did some electrolyte stuff, and I think she may have had some amino acids. I didn't. I'm kind of extreme, so I'm like all or nothing, and I did drink the coffee, but I mean that's still, that didn't break the fast in my mind. But I didn't want to do anything. I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do it, I'm not going to do any amino acids. I'm just going to do it.
Fair
So,
enough.
anyway, yeah. Well, very nice. Well, I love all your recommendations. They're simple, but yet effective, and you don't overcomplicate things. Great advice. So anyway, we just did a kind of a real quick summary of the book, but encourage people, if they want to kind of learn a little bit more, go find the book, $1 Million Body Method, Nate Palmer. Anything else about the book that I didn't ask you just kind of want to throw out there?
No, I think that's a pretty good summary right there.
Yeah.
It is kind of like a progressive book. So if you're like, what does he say again? Like all the chapters look about the same. And then each time it's like, hey, do this in the morning. Now do this in the afternoon. Now eat like this. So like you can kind of just look at the back and see, okay, here's exactly what to do. But if you want to check it out, if you're like, I don't know about all this, I'm not trying to like buy a new book, you can go to getnatesbook.com and I'll just give you the ebook version just for $3. So you can just have it. If you want to listen to it on Audible or buy a hard copy on Amazon, it's available for you as well. But if you just want to try it out, like that's my goal, is just to put this in front of people, have them try it out, see what results you get. Always be monitoring your energy levels and your hunger levels. Because I think those are two big metrics to base success on. Because if you're not hungry and you're very energized, that's a win. That's a huge win. Because I think most people walk around, they're just always starving because they're always out of balance with their insulin levels and they're always eating sugar. So their gut bacteria is always requesting more. So I think that having that kind of like N1 experiment for yourself is really powerful. So I would encourage everyone to try it out, especially if you were in that place where you're like, yeah, I would like to lose weight or get leaner or whatever else.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. I'm gonna throw out some other websites. So $1 million bodymethod.com. That's just the book website, correct?
Yeah, that's the website where I'm like, hey, you should probably book a call with me. Let's talk about it. So
Perfect.
yeah, if you want to talk, go to $1millionbodymethod.com.
And then you also have, is it Innate Training Systems? Is that also?
Yeah, I don't update that one. I've had that website from like 2011.
Okay, well, scratch that then. All right, so
hundreds of
$1 Million
articles.
Body Method is best way to contact you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just go to Low Carb Hustle on Instagram. Like you get a lot of educational posts, and then occasionally I'll put one up today where I just asked a guy about Pokemon on the Low Carb Game Show.
Okay.
Listen, I think it's just fitness. I'm trying to have a good time with this.
Yeah,
so if that's your vibe, check it out on Low Carb Hustle on Instagram. And if it's not, then definitely don't, because it gets weird.
Speaking of Low Carb Hustle, so you host a podcast and it's called Low Carb Hustle podcast. And so people can check that out, talk about that. I mean, obviously, it's a kind of a fitness podcast, but just talk a little bit about that show and maybe, some of the guests you've had on there, stuff you talk about on there?
So we've been doing kind of like, I would call it like mindset March recently. And that's been really fun talking with a couple of people about just like different ways of like, we had a guy named unnamed Dave something. Dave Whitley called himself the Iron Tamer. He does like strong, like feats of strength, basically. And he was talking about like bending wrenches and tearing phone books and all these things. And he talked about the mental rehearsal that went into these feats of strength, where he would literally visualize them over and over and over again so vividly that he would like sneeze from imaginary chalk. And then we tied that into some other people talking about, hey, if you're gonna be on a weight loss journey, you got to realize that there are things that are going to get in your way. So this was Mike Milner, who's a great coach. He was talking about his personal journey, and he's talking about the obstacles that you're going to run into, having a game plan for those, visualizing those and planning through those ahead of time so you know what you're going to say or do in those situations when they inevitably arise. And then I got one coming out next week with a guy named Chappie, was a federal inmate for 12 years, and talked about his mindset going into solitary confinement for 10 months and how he came out, got sober, and started just completely changing his life, changing the trajectory that he was on. And now he's on a mission right now to reach out and help other inmates who are in the same situation. So this whole month has been, Mindset March has been crazy. We have some other great guests on here talking about more about like the fitness, nutrition, low carb side of things, but it was fun, a little mashup to do that way.
Yeah. Well, very cool. All right. Well, as we wrap up here, I always ask my guests if they could give us one health tip that will make us healthier today. What would you say to that?
Oh man, I got such boring stuff to say to that. Do you want a cool tip or do you want a real tip?
You pick. Sometimes it's hard to just do one, but you pick.
I'd say get out and get a walk in. If you can walk every single day, like that's one of the best things you can do for your health. There's a concept in Ayurveda medicine, which is they call it 100 steps, which basically means every time you eat a meal, go walk 100 steps. So go walk for like 5-10 minutes. That's a great way to help your digestive process, partition those nutrients a little bit better. And you just feel so much better. That's why my cousins and I always take a walk on Thanksgiving. No, but I think that walking is probably one of the keys to health and longevity. And if you can do that on a daily basis, make that a habit, you're just gonna be feeling great.
Yeah, perfect. Great advice.
Boring tips.
No, it's good though. All right. Well, good stuff. So really appreciate your time and appreciate everyone listening. And have a great day. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Greg.